Welcome to the Rooted in Light podcast. I am your host, Gibrán Rivera, and I am fortunate to be joined today by my husband and sometimes co-host, Gibrán Rivera. Welcome, Gibrán.
Thank you for having me. It's really good to be with you, beautiful and perfect woman that you are.
Beautiful and perfect. I'm pretty sure I just noticed lipstick on my teeth, but I appreciate how you see me. And friends, that might be a invitation to come over to the YouTube if you want to see a little bit of that awkwardness that just happened for me. But I would say you might want to come over to this YouTube, Gibrán, because I was talking with a client today and I said something, I referenced you, right? And I said, have you met my husband? And she said, no, she's just on the podcast. I've just heard his voice. And I was like, well, she is actually going to meet you soon. And I was like, I'll be interested to see if he looks like what you think, from the voice. So that is yet another invitation to join us on YouTube if you haven't seen
Picture my face right now. What do I look like in your imagination?
it. Right. I bet it's not what you look like. What do you think?
I don't know how this works.
Yeah, I don't know. But wait, do you get images of people in your mind?
No, I don't.
Okay. I always
Yeah.
do. I always have an idea of what I think people look like. All right, friends.
That is really interesting and cool.
Well,
But you're very visual. You definitely see images a lot.
Yeah. Yes. In the Akashic readings I do, and my goddess devotion, images are really a way in for me.
Deities show up for you as fully formed images?
Yeah, I don't understand how it's not
Creatures of deities come and cuddle you?
I mean, I guess I understand everyone has a different experience, but yes, that is my experience.
That's a pretty cool one.
It's very full of image and emotion and sensation. So I would love to ask you about that, but I'm gonna pull us back around to what we're gonna talk about today. We are gonna talk about integration today, and I wanted to have you on because I feel like since I've known you, this has been a drum you've been beating. So first, we're gonna talk about what integration is, but I feel like you have been since we've been. Even before we were together, I heard you talk about this need to integrate. And so maybe we'll start there, love, and just have you speak about when you say integration, what do you mean? So people are having experiences. What do you mean when you say we need to do integration?
Okay. Well, I'm going to go broad first.
Great.
So if we think about the age that we're in, the dominant, what I refer to as like the dominant but dying paradigm, the paradigm that gives us the meta crisis, we can think about it as like informed by the industrial age, which is informed by Newtonian physics, which is about like the movement of big things. And and I call it like the compartmentalization of life. So we lived in a kind of like as whole individuals embedded into our lives, and like with industrialization, we're like, no, now here you are a worker, right? Here you are a family person. Here you might be a soldier or a citizen. Here you are you go to church, so just things get split, and so I think about the big move that we're making all together is gonna move towards integrating what has been compartmentalized, which is true societally, and it's true for us as individuals, right? As like our wounds happen and our hurts happen, and we take parts and set them aside and hide them from ourselves. So how do we integrate? So that's one. The other one is you and I have really talked a lot about the power of integrity, really, really schooled by Martha Beck on that, the way of integrity being a central text in our lives. And I know I use it a lot with my clients. I think you might too. So I find that coming into integrity with myself is always like, has historically been like a move towards coming into the fullness of myself and even into my own power. And so around the time that that you and I got together, um, that became a moment of me really starting to come into integrity with myself. It's also when I first started to abstain from certain substances, right? And started to really question the kind of work I was doing and whether it was aligned with my actual beliefs, the kind of groups I was working with. and the way in which they were holding certain ideologies. So that was me coming into integrity. So I'm just
Mhm.
laying down some tracks here, but to
Great.
get to the
Love it.
main part, I think what we're honing in on here is we can people can have an experience of insight. And you and I have enjoyed it. Heard some podcast once when somebody said insight is like the booby trap of therapy,
Mhm.
or like the booby trap of the transformational experience. And it can be therapy, it can be a ritual, it can be a major spiritual moment, it can be reading an awesome book, it can be listening to a podcast, it can be a transformational retreats like the ones I just facilitated earlier last month. I mean, and there's something in the way we think of ourselves as
Mhm.
Westerners, like we think of ourselves as thinking things.
Mhm.
Um, we think of knowledge as propositional, as kind of ideas that when we get this insight hits, we think we get it. Some endorphin goes off and a light bulb goes off,
Uh-huh.
and we think we get it. And because we think of ourselves as thinking things, right? And we think that knowledge is propositional, then we just kind of we never fully integrate the insight into our body, into who we actually like, into our body, and therefore as it is in our bodies, into how we move in the world and
Mhm.
who we are in the world. And I think that's what I mean here by integration. Maybe one last thing I'll say, just because it lingers, and this is just again setting the ground, is integration is we are living in the middle of a psychedelic renaissance.
Mhm.
And people that have heard me talk about this, I always say it is a net positive, right? But it is also a shit show, right? And so we are at
Right.
a
Mhm.
time
Mhm.
where it is very de rigueur to talk about integration. Like people are like, because psychedelics integration, psychedelic, but there's a lot of talking about integration and very little doing of integration because we don't even
Uh-huh.
know exactly what it is, you know?
Oh my goodness. So much to ask you about, so much to reflect back on what you said. And this might seem a little strange, but you started big, right? You started with, kind of this cultural movement toward industrialization that led to compartmentalization. And, I want to ask you what's good about compartmentalization? What's good about there's something for me like before we just kind of assume that integration is what we want to do, before we're like, oh, that direction, not that. I want to ask, why do you think we went in the direction of compartmentalization? What does it give us?
That's really Thank you. That is a good question. Um, it allowed us to manipulate things. Um, it comes with um, it comes with materialism as a way of thinking. So we take a world that is alive, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
That we understood as enlivened. We also understood as mysterious. We also experienced as dangerous, right? And
Right.
as I talked about in that talk I did on the post-liberal world order,
Mhm.
um, we with materialism we like stole the power of the gods, and we like turned the world into a world made of things, material things. We like sap the spirit out of it, and in seizing that power, we have been able to manipulate big things in very important ways to make huge advances at the level of science, right?
Mhm. Uh-huh.
At the level of like the kind of societies that we can build, the scale at which we can build. All of that takes like looking at things as separate, piecing them back together, extracting what needs to be extracted, and leveraging it in another way. So there's all kind. I said what quote unquote needs to be extracted, but I think all of it has gone. It just keeps happening. We just keep doing it. Like it's a move that should not be defined as bad, but has reached its logical
Uh-huh.
conclusion.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we have overcorrected.
And you can see why we would have overcorrected, right? When
Yeah.
you said taking, like taking and feeling like we had the power of the gods to create, to control. right?
Right.
Like there's so much, again, I've heard you say this about the trauma discourse. There's so much about the trauma discourse that's positive, net positive. But what we know is when we are traumatized, like often the move, which is completely about our survival, is to take control back. What can I
Right.
control? Or what can I pretend I control? Or whatever it would be. But there
Right.
is something in our nature, right? That like wants to have a say, wants to impact, wants to like be able to a little bit control or at least navigate the future. So you can see why compartmentalization as uh, a strategy
Mhm.
might be okay sometimes, right? But
Right.
when we've gotten to the what did the how did you put it? The logical end of that
The
strategy?
logical conclusion, yeah.
Yeah, the logical conclusion of that strategy, then we have to say like, okay, a lot of times in life there are poles, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually like both poles have value. And like we've been a little far on this pole, right? We've just
Yeah.
been a little far on the compartmentalization pole. And part of what I wanted to pull out that you said that I thought was so wise was that we've even compartmentalized ourselves.
Right.
Right. It's not only just we've pulled humanity away from its relationship with the natural world or been the beings that act upon, right? That's actually also moved into our compartmentalization of ourselves. And
Yeah.
even in some ways, I can see the necessary part of that. If we talk about trauma, certainly we need to compartmentalize, right? We need to
Right.
protect or that's like how our little parts do it, right? That's how they stay safe. You can even see the benefit of compartmentalization individually. And yet most folks I work with, and I'll love you to speak, are actually trying to gather up some of those pieces again. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that part has been exiled, or they don't really like that part, or I didn't even know that part existed.
Right.
And
Right.
they're trying to bring it back in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that we are inherently whole, that we live in a universe, a reality that is alive and
Mhm.
inherently whole, and that it seems like part of the human journey is to start to see ourselves as separate from that,
Uh-huh.
and then the other part is to return to that. And some
Mhm.
cultures seem to have a better understanding of that inherent wholeness than others, but I don't think we would have all the myths, the songs, and the stories inviting us and bringing us to remember if it wasn't a big human thing to forget.
Right. We actually talked about this. I think was it just yesterday we talked about this?
Yeah,
We were like, maybe this is actually what it is to be human. That we are born and we have to forget. We have
yeah,
to forget our wholeness. We have to forget our interconnection because that's the game. The game is to
yeah,
come back, right? And so let's talk about integration and what it means in your current work? You said psychedelics, like I agree. I hear that word all the time, integration, integration, integration. But I think, we could talk about a psychedelic experience and integrating afterwards, but we could also talk about a really insightful therapy session and
yeah.
integrating afterwards. Or like I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what you did last month and the need for folks to
Yeah,
integrate.
that's top of mind because well, let me tell people what it was, and then talk about top of mind. Last month, the last 2.5 weeks of June, I did three three cool things. um, Sounds so funny to say I did three cool things, but I did three cool things.
You did.
And I invited people into them, and I closed uh, a coaching program that I call the Transformational Coaching Intensive, and that includes one-on-one coaching. With me, it includes group coaching. It includes healing work with individuals, healing work with the group, and so that was the big conclusion of that. Happened, and then within days, I was facilitating the evolutionary leadership workshop, which I try to do every year, and understand as like the crown jewel of my work. And then after that, I did what is now the second ever evolutionary leadership graduate program. And so it's good to bring these because, especially those last two, because there's no psychedelics, right? They're just like, and
Can you say what
just
EL is, what evolutionary leadership is? I know it's the crown jewel, but I would love for people to hear what the program is from
it is
YouTube.
a workshop that is designed to make dreams real, to take an idea, a longing, something that you're supposed to do in the world and get you out of your head and make it real in the real world. And um, it is anchored by a framework by a three-part framework of intention, aligning you up with the power of your intention, connection. So it's a beautiful community building
Oh, yeah.
process. And I mean, we're 10 years on, so it's like a really proven concept.
Mhm.
And experimentation, relentless experimentation as we try to make what we're here to make. And so I said it was top of mind because just as I was waiting for you to put your makeup on for this, I uh, looked into the WhatsApp channels for both of these groups, and my heart just like blew open
Mm.
because they were talking to each other about integration. They were
Oh.
making suggestions. They were
Mm.
owning where they were not doing it. You know what I mean? It was this
Uh-huh.
like really lovely. They were bringing this kata, this physical motion that we do.
Mm.
Um, and they were like, "Have you done it? Have you been practicing?" I'm bringing it back in. So they were really like talking about the process of bringing this. They were talking about structuring. One person talked about structuring their day so that they have their peer coaching session on the
Mhm.
same day that I run an integration circle, right? So
Ah,
so the peer coaching is another way to integrate, right? Like being with people that were with you in the experience or know about the experience to help move through it. So those that's one of the reasons why it's top of mind. Yeah.
great. So, and I just have lost a little bit of track. So you had the coaching, you had the 2 ELs, evolutionary leadership for folks who are interested. I just wanted to make sure that folks know what that is, so in case they're interested, because I think you're gonna fill up early this year. That's what we're talking about, and it is space limited, so I wanted to make sure folks knew about it.
It's very
But
nice of you.
when you think about well, yeah, I appreciate that it is very nice of me, but also, like, I think it's actually, like you said, it's a proof of concept. You've done it 10 years. I have the benefit of that community, right? I know those folks. I know how they're in community. In some ways, it's, the one of the only self-organizing communities that I've actually seen work long term, right?
Mhm.
And so I think it's just important. It's an important place for me to learn and to be connected. What is hmm, what is the possibility? Okay, so we go through a psychedelic experience, we go through a great therapy session, we have a transformative week. I think everyone, I mean, not everyone can say they've done psychedelics or whatever, but everyone
Mm.
can kind of say they've had like kind of these referential or peak
Yep.
experiences, right? Like we all know what it is. And we all know what it is to go back home and like feel it slipping away. Just
Yeah.
like and not sure what to do, right? Like or to
Yes.
be like, "Oh, I think longingly of, like, what those 5 days were," or and so, how do you see I guess, 2 things, like, how do you see people not integrating? And then I wanna talk about what is the possibility for integration. I wanna actually the second part, I want us to get really concrete what that would look like.
Great. This is really good. So this is an important conversation, and what I find helpful about it is that I can talk about my own experience rather than talking about what people are doing or not doing,
Great, great.
because I grew up worshiping in what was called it's probably still called the charismatic renewal. And people that don't know what that is, they might think of like a Pentecostalist approach. What does that mean? When you see, if you know about it yourself, when you see churches where people are like speaking in tongues and raising their hands in the air and jumping up and down and placing their hands upon each other, this kind of very physical, embodied um, uh, worship, right? Which was really beautiful, aside from the fact that the theology could get so twisted and so
Mhm.
conservative and so um, narrow. Um, and then I had a tantric initiation, and I engaged a yogic path, and that was also very transcendent, right? And
Mhm.
when I would worship there, and when I would chant, my vibration would get really high, and even the initiation was this kind of explosive moment in my consciousness that quite literally reoriented the rest of my life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And later on, I got into the medicine path, which again is just like mind blowing experience after mind blowing experience. And so you start really young, right? And you keep following the thread. And what I realized quite late and maybe even relatively recently in my life is that I equated God or the divine
Uh-huh.
with the ecstatic,
Wow.
right?
Mhm. Uh-huh.
With that
Right.
kind of like mind blowing, cathartic, fiery vibration. And so since I thought that was God and I've been after God all my life, I got in the
Right.
chase after that.
Wow.
Right? And which is what you see a lot
Wow.
in psychedelic work. You see it in people that get like lost in their therapeutic healing, right?
Uh-huh.
The people that go from workshop to workshop to workshop, right?
Uh-huh.
And I facilitate workshops on for them, right?
We love
But
them. That's
um,
right. Come
but
to our workshops.
it's just like it's not
Mm.
being integrated. It's like I was chasing
Uh-huh.
something. I was after,
Uh-huh.
and I thought that only when I had that feeling, I was right. And then my job was to try and have that feeling in my everyday life. And when if I wasn't, my assessment was that something was wrong with my spiritual
Right.
life, that I probably needed
Right.
another something, right? And
Mhm.
it was a trap, and so to begin to integrate for me is to come right here, right into the
Mm.
mundane of every day,
Yeah.
and to be in my body, right, and to return to my breath. And I have a mantra to
Mhm.
return to my mantra, to like to find ways to calm the restless mind, and when I can't quite calm it, to find the courage to be with the discomfort of of
Ah.
that restlessness,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
And so all of that is a way for me to integrate, because if I can't make it part of my day to day, then it's actually not a real part of my life. It's like even if I have many moments of exception because I'm chasing it, there's still moments of exception. And over time they can get quite destabilizing because
Uh-huh.
you're not integrating. So those are some things. Maybe the last thing I'll say is, and this is one of the reasons why I started to hold the integration circles. For me, after years and years and years of trying to figure this out, the thing that works for me for integration is literally I try to go to meet with people that want the same thing that I want on a call
Uh-huh.
at least an hour every day.
Whoa.
I mean, that's a lot. Not
Whoa.
everybody's called to that kind of thing, right? But there's a there's a path to follow, there are steps to take, right? And we just kind of support each other about what that is. And so
Mhm.
that to me is like the thing that has helped me the most with my integration. That literally like because I can get the insight. I can
Right.
go to my meeting yesterday and 2 days ago and be like, yeah, that's it. I got it. Right. And today I need to be reminded.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the thing. Like with when we think of ourselves as these thinking things and these machines, right? Like we think like getting it is gonna change you. But it's not. It's not.
Right. If it actually, I mean, if the spiritual, well, if we just say contentment, if we just say happiness, if we just like pull it away from spiritual, like we're actually never gonna think our way to happy. We're actually just not. I mean, there's
No, it's
lots
what a
of,
beautiful
like,
thing.
like, there's lots of ways we can change our thinking that impacts our happiness or our joy, but we're actually not gonna think our way to happy. I wanna say, 'cause and I also wanna say, so what you did in your integration is like, "Okay, I gotta be with people an hour a day, like, talking about this stuff." So, because I know you, like, of course, then what you did is you turned around and said, "Okay, so then how can I offer it to others?" Right? How can I, like,
Mhm.
make that available to others? I wanna talk about your integration circles, but first I want you to speak clearly, and I'm happy to speak to it too, because as you talk about we talk about these kind of peak experiences or insights or, whatever referential experiences, communion with people, communion with God, and then we talk about integration. I gotta tell you, integration doesn't sound all that much fun, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, well, why would I wanna
Right.
do that? Like, my main way, like a very, like, strong practice for me of integration is journaling, like,
Mhm.
just journaling
That's a
every
great
you
practice.
know, but it's not exciting.
Right.
Right? It's not actually, we just had Christina Baldwin on, 2 podcasts ago, and she talked about journaling as a spiritual practice. Um,
I've been listening to that. Almost done.
I mean, she's so brilliant. In some ways, journaling is like getting to the page when you don't want to. It's like the
Right.
chop wood, carry water. And so I just wanted, like, integration kind of feels a little bit like, wah wah after having these experiences. So what would you say to
Yeah.
that?
Look, again, you're talking to me, and I just described decades of my life, right? Like that it was certainly, in theory, would have, when somebody was in my where I am right now telling me about it, I'd be like, right, that sounds awesome. Okay, what's the next what's the next journey, right? What's
Uh-huh.
the next
Yeah, yeah.
um so I get it. I really get it. It's actually really delightful, like life, when your relationships begin to change.
Mm,
Your
mhm.
relationship with your partner and your loved ones. When your relationship with yourself begins to change.
Yeah.
When you find that you are actually having more peace and more trust in as you walk about your life. That is the most rewarding thing ever. It
Mhm.
really, really is, you know?
Uh-huh.
And you still get to have the peak experience. You just don't need to have them every week or every month, you know?
Mhm.
But your life becomes, when people around you start to reflect back to you
Mhm. Mm.
that you are a positive presence in their lives.
Mhm.
Um, that is a truly rewarding feeling, you know?
Mhm.
I think we respond to that because we're communal and we're relational. And when you feel and when that doesn't like mismatch how you feel inside or how you
Mhm.
feel before the divine, um, you start to like settle into something quite beautiful and more trustworthy because it doesn't go away in the same way.
Mhm.
You go from state experience, right? A state experience of something epic to stage or trait,
Mm.
right? Right, to like you develop, and a stage is something. A stage of development is can't be undone. You become a different person in a way that can't be taken away from you, and that's very liberating and empowering.
Right. So there is something, it's not necessarily the bliss or ecstasis, right?
Hmm.
Of peak experiences or but it is a different kind of settling in of I mean, I almost use the word integration to describe integration. There's something here that is like you said, more trustworthy, that is more, it's not just in your mind. I can think about occasionally insights from other parts of my life where I'm in a yoga class and I'm like, oh, now my body gets it, right? Or,
Right.
oh, right now, oh, like now I kind of, my emotion gets it. It feels more like who I am versus what I do or what I know about myself. And there is, I think, some deep satisfaction or contentment on moving. I said my coaching clients often, like, they're seeking their wholeness, and that automatically means, like, you have to bring in these different parts, these parts that have been compartmentalized, and it might be
Yeah.
compartmentalized in yourself or exiled by society, right? Like, or but there is something around coming into wholeness that is its own satisfaction or good feeling, and it is often quieter
Yeah. Yeah.
than, kind of the blow your mind or heart open experiences, which we love. We want everyone to have their mind and heart blown open and to understand their oneness and all those things. But there is something that is like, kind of anyone can go do that, but the
Yeah.
hard work and the sustainable work is with the integration.
But yeah, it's I like that you use the word sustainable. There's two things that come to mind as I hear you. One is this morning, I was walking into our bedroom and I saw you naked uh, with your face towards the window. I could see you from the back, one of my favorite perspectives.
So
But you were
silly.
listening for the birds,
Mhm.
right? You were like honestly and with full of awe, like, and then you told me there's like seven types out there, and I
Mhm.
think that's what becomes possible
Yeah.
with integration, and you start to like listen for the birds and find the awe in that. That doesn't feel like, oh, you settled for less than an
Right.
explosive ceremony,
Right.
right?
Oh,
It
so
doesn't
good.
feel that way. And I had another. Oh well, actually, I had this sense myself. Um, I felt it strongly after the first EL before the graduate program. That couple of days of transition there, and I felt this profound satisfaction, right? Like this beautiful group of people left. Some of them talking about having had experience like this, having a life changing
Mm.
experience, seeing them really like in themselves, their faces open, loving each other. It was magical, and I was
Mm.
feeling deep gratitude and deep satisfaction. But what I wasn't feeling, which had been a traditional, like what I was after in a lot of my work before, was that like high
Mm.
rush that really it's been like even my work, what I do for a living, was kind of in some ways chasing that.
Mhm.
And I felt like, okay, there's something really special happening here, in that that's not what is at the foreground. And if somebody was on the other side when I was still chasing the high, telling me that this would be just as good, if not better, I would not I would
Mm.
not have been able to believe it, right?
Wow.
Because the intensity is so intoxicating. Like,
Right. Right.
why? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Why would I not want the intensity?
Uh-huh.
Um, and so it was a very powerful shift in me.
So that's a really interesting thing just to kind of pull out, and then I want you to talk about the integration circles that you're running because I think, that there's integration as a practice, right? Like, it's okay. I always say to people after ceremony or after other transformative work that you don't have to grab it all. You don't have to, like, grab it so you don't forget it. Like, that's not what integration is, right?
Right.
There's not um but I feel like it's worth saying out loud that there's something about this that is almost like, how they say, like, leave the shore of something to kind of experience something else? Like, there's almost like leaving the shore of high transformative experiences in the way that you understand them. It's not that you may not ever have them again, but, like, kind of letting go as that is the way of change, or that is the way that, life is lived, which I think is part of the materialism, is part of the industrial work that you talked about. Like, they're like these states, like, it's just, like, always chasing, right? Like, some could say
Yeah.
it's capitalism, right? Like, always more, always, like, there's
Yeah.
something that's, like, there, that this kind of brings you back down into the ground, into your body,
Yes.
into,
Yes.
like,
Beautiful.
what is so right now. And I think, I don't think it's, I mean, maybe, I don't think it's because we're 50 that we can see it, and
Yeah.
after, having,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think this is just an aging thing. I actually think it's like something that folks can get to earlier if they know it's possible. But if you don't even know
Yes.
it's possible, right? If you actually kind of
Yeah.
believe that you should always be up. And I don't know that I have the same way of seeking, like, kind of the peak or the high experiences that you've had, but I think I have been really committed to improvement.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
self-improvement. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah,
really, like, if I'm not doing that, what am I doing? Right?
yeah,
Because there's some seeking there. It may not be like the transcendent experience, but there's something about, in at least my journey of integration, that is pausing,
yeah.
not and for me, and I don't know if this will be true for any of our listeners, but for me, that kind of constant seeking of self-improvement, even though I hope that it has made me a better person in my life and a better friend and a better partner and a better parent, all those things are true, but it was 2 things. It was a way to prove to myself my worth,
Mhm,
right? So
mhm.
it wasn't really doing the thing I thought it was doing. It was like doing an underlying psychological need. And I think it kept me away from people. I think it
Uh,
actually began to,
uh,
like, really, like, my focus was inward on my experience, what I was doing, which doesn't leave nearly as much experience for outward. So there's something about integration too, I think, that can actually, especially in these times right now, like,
yes.
help us begin to turn toward other people and, like, not the integration is our responsibility, but it can be without the preoccupation with self.
That's right, that's right. No, this is really good because, Josh Schry, at the Emerald podcast, did a beautiful piece that I often recommend, where he says, like, embodiments means being flying away and being torn apart. And he does
Mm.
a lot. Through his podcast, he talks a lot about, yeah, like the burden that we place on ourselves when the transformational project is so hyper individuated, right?
Ah,
Uh,
uh-huh.
and so some of the so I have like a bunch of quick replies here. One is, you're moving towards integration if a couple of things are happening in your life, or whatever you're doing is working,
Okay.
whether it is a spiritual practice or medicine, healing work, or therapy, like whatever it might be. It should do a couple of things. Um, it should certainly bring more calm, right? Which is
Uh-huh.
really only harder in our distracted
Yeah.
and like overstimulated age. But it there's a calm that comes with it. Um, it should grow your trust in what is unfolding. So faith or
Mm.
trust. It should manifest in you as growing compassion and kindness,
Ah,
which are
great.
highly relational, right? You got to be compassionate towards yourself and kind towards yourself, but there's something highly relation. So you should be feel like you're growing in kindness and compassion. It should be reflected back to you. You shouldn't be the only assessor of how kind and compassionate you are. And I think you should be
Right.
growing in self sovereignty, right? Your
Mm.
capacity to bring yourself to coherent and to express the authenticity of your way in a way that can be distinguished from feeding the little beast of postmodern narcissism, right? And
Mm.
so that's like some of what flows from the process of integration. The other thing I wanted to say, and you referred back to it, when I hold integration circles, or when we hold them together, um, the constant thing is like, yeah, like a lot happened in this experience. There's no way your mind can capture it all. What is the one thing that you're gonna keep returning to,
Right.
and how are you gonna turn it into a practice? And even better, can you turn it into a practice that you could touch in many, many, many times a day, so that it is easier for you to get to 10,000 repetitions, right? So that's
Right.
like
Right.
one way to bring it, right? And so that's one. And then I think the last thing, or before talking about the integration circle itself, the easiest integration practices, the ones I recommend the most, are journaling. But journaling a lot, I recommend a lot of like um, free writing,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
stream of consciousness
Yep.
journaling, because
100%.
it's not a task, right?
Yep.
And I know you're
100%.
very methodical in your journaling, which is nothing wrong with that. But if people are not journalers, I like free
Yeah, yeah.
writing. And then actually the biggest one, honestly, is walking. Long walks without
Oh.
input, like not with your headset on.
Okay.
We are made to walk, like with the human being, right, pays a very high cost for this posture. And
Uh-huh.
so we're well rewarded for long walks. My grandfather, my grandparents, my lost as they lost their firstborn son as
Mm.
an adult that was 5 years old. And my grandfather said he walked for 2 years,
Ah,
to, like, process the
yeah,
loss,
yeah.
So there's just walking. Pilgrimages involve a lot of walking, right?
Right. Of
So, like,
course, of course.
long walks are really great ways to integrate. To answer your question about the circles, the specific circles, we are I'm inviting members of my community at large, people that read the newsletter, people that have been through any of my programs, um, to gather weekly. And we gather and we do two things. We have this kind of just talk about what you're integrating, and that's done in small groups, and people are asked not to comment on each other. So it's like a so it's just like just holding space for each other. Then we actually read from a beautiful piece by David White on anxiety. Remember, I'm
Mm.
talking about calm being like the antidote, right? So anxiety is this thing that is produced by this culture. And so we read from that, and then we have another part, and this was more conversational about like what are you doing? How are you working with your anxiety? You know, what are you learning about calming it, right? Like how are you relating to it? What are you struggling with? So we do two of those rounds. We hear from the group at large, and then we close, and they're about an hour. I think I'm about to get. I don't know when this podcast is going out. I would love
It
it to go
comes
out
out,
before July
July
is over.
29th, I believe.
Oh, okay. So people won't be able to
They won't be able to join?
because no, because I'm gonna go on vacation and then we're gonna move to Boost Your Practice, which is a
Okay.
great, like a much more intensive, but that has a weekly meeting, and that's a great way to integrate. I recommend that for people.
We will
Um,
link. Once you get that Boost link up, we will send it out to
it's up,
folks.
it's up.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, and then I'm gonna actually do a different kind of gathering in October, which are gonna be more like like learning sessions. The integration circle might not come back um, uh, until those are over. But there's still ways to gather and stay connected with others, which is also a great way to integrate. Being with like-minded people who have or want what you want.
Well, I wanna say, having done Boost Your Practice 4 times and also been on the winning team 4 times, if anyone knows Boost Your Practice, that's a little point of pride for me. But I think it's actually a really powerful integration space. I think that this was a place where, I have made what I think will be lifelong relationships with people I didn't know before, but all and they're at depth, right? Those
Mhm.
relationships are deep relationships. And it's an ongoing way to have practices of integration in your daily life. There's a physical
Right.
practice, there's a meditative practice, there's a creative practice. We haven't even talked about creative practices for integration. So we will include the Boost Your Practice link in the show notes here. I highly recommend it to folks. If you're thinking about, oh, I've had this experience, or oh, I would just like to be in regular conversation around kind of like what's up and what's transforming for me with other folks so that I can kind of keep my eye on it, right? There are a million things happening in a day. And so this is a way to keep your eye on it. So we'll put that link up. I think I heard you mention that folks will know about the next integration circle or the learning gatherings by signing up for your newsletter. You want to give us the address for that?
Yeah. GibranRivera.substack.com.
Great. So that's how you get, and we'll put that link up in the show notes as well. But Gibran's newsletter is a great read. So just, you can just kind of get on there and start to hear about things. So there's a newsletter, there's Boost Your Practice. Of course, friends, like Gibran does coaching, he does guiding, he does facilitation. That's all on GibranRivera.com. As do I, TuesdayRivera.com. So you can find us in any way that you would like off of our websites. There's contact sheets and all that. But one last thing, last thing. Gibran
I
and I
love
are
looking at your face.
Oh, I
It's
like
so
you so
pretty.
much. I like you so much. Um, One last thing, Gibran and I are doing a little experiment this summer. We've already got some questions, but I just want to invite people in. We're going to do a quick YouTube show called Naughty Guardian Angels. And we're going to do this because people ask us for advice a lot. And sometimes we have fun giving it a little bit of a naughty spin. And your questions don't have to be naughty, just to be really clear. We'll take any
But
questions you
they
got.
could be and should be.
They could be. We welcome those questions
They
for
don't have to,
sure.
okay, maybe not should, but we welcome them.
But they could be, and we'll be delighted to answer them. So anything about work, life, partnership, family, kids, like you got a question you just like want us to riff on a little bit, we're going to start a little advice column just for a little bit of fun
And
this
it's gonna be
summer.
shorter on this. It's just like
Oh
quick,
yeah.
quick and fun, like yeah,
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
bite-sized is what we're going for. I will put a link to the ask your question form also in these show notes, so that you can just like go on there and ask us a quick question and we'll respond. Thank you all so much. Thank you, love. It is always wonderful. I feel like I say your name, 35 times a day to people. And so it's wonderful to have you on here giving your perspective directly. And really, I think like beating that drum of integration because I've really seen you do that, and I think it's so
It's
important.
it's changed my life. It's making my life so much better, so much cleaner and clearer. And I beat you. I say your name 40 times a day.
All right, friends, thank you so much. TuesdayRivera.com. If you have a question, hello at TuesdayRivera.com. If you have a comment or you want to give us some feedback on the podcast, rate, review, all those different things, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.